Millionaire CEO kisses his new maid to escape marriage, then fell for her unexpectedly. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. He looked right through her. But their son knew the truth. She hadn't seen him in 7 years. Not since that night. He whispered promises and disappeared before morning. Now he stood just feet away, sharp suit, champagne in hand, surrounded by people who spoke in stocks and power. The billionaire CEO everyone admired. But when his eyes swept the room and landed on her, there was nothing. Not a flicker of memory, not a hint of recognition. He didn't remember her, and he certainly didn't know about the little boy gripping her hand. The one who'd asked just that morning, "Mommy, do I have a dad like other kids?" She'd brought him here tonight for the answer, because sometimes the most powerful man in the room is the last one to realize he left behind the only thing that ever really mattered. The man who forgot everything except what mattered most. He didn't recognize her. 7 years. That's how long it had been. 7 winters since the summer night he promised he'd call. 7 birthdays where Liam blew out candles without a father by his side. 7 years since Olivia Carter stopped believing in closure. And yet, here they were. He walked past her with that same careless elegance, the kind only the rich are born into. Crisp suit, eyes cold as winter glass. Not a blink of memory, nothing. But Liam noticed something. His small hand squeezed hers a little tighter. "Mom," he whispered. "Is that him?" She didn't answer right away. Her throat was tight, and the air in the Gala was too warm for a December evening. Every laugh, every glass raised around her sounded 1,000 miles away. All she could hear was the soft rise and fall of her son's breath. "He looks like me," Liam said, still watching the man. She swallowed. "Yes," she finally said. "That's him. Julian Blake, CEO, philanthropist, Wall Street darling." And once, for a brief, burning moment hers, he was standing beneath a chandelier, nodding politely to some senator's daughter, his smile like polished marble, unmoved, immaculate, unreachable. And yet, years ago, he'd been all laughter and sunlight, chasing her barefoot through a Cape Cod beach house, with sand in his hair and freckles across his nose, a version of him no one here would ever believe existed, not even him, because he had forgotten completely. Olivia Carter had no intention of crashing this gala, but Liam had drawn a picture at school, a crayon family portrait, 2 people holding hands, and 1 empty space labeled Dad. That single question mark had cracked her open. She'd been working 2 jobs, raising Liam without complaint. She wasn't here for revenge or money. She wasn't even sure why she came at all. Maybe she was just tired of being invisible. Across the ballroom, Julian tilted his head. His eyes swept the crowd again. He paused, only for a moment, when they passed over her and Liam. Then they moved on. He didn't see her, not really, but Liam saw everything. The way his mother inhaled just a little too deeply, the way her chin lifted, like she was standing on the edge of something sharp. "He doesn't know me, does he?" Liam asked quietly. She knelt beside him, brushing a crumb off his little dress shoes. "No, baby, he doesn't. Will he want to?" She hesitated. "I don't know." Liam nodded. "Okay," just like that. 1 word, okay. No tantrum, no questions, just the silent endurance children learn too early when life isn't fair. The gala was loud crystal, brass, and bright dresses. Olivia didn't belong here. Her dress was borrowed. Her lipstick was 3 years old, her heels pinched. But Liam wanted answers, and she had run out of excuses. She walked him to the children's art room, where volunteers had set up canvases and cocoa. She kissed his head, told him she'd be back soon, and stepped into the marble hallway alone. Julian was near the fireplace now, deep in conversation with someone important, someone polished. Olivia took a shaky breath and moved toward him. She didn't expect the memory to hit so hard. It was the 4th of July. Years ago, they were lying on a deck chair, stars overhead, their bodies sunburned and sticky with salt. He had whispered, "Don't disappear. I think I could love you. Leave." But he did disappear, and she didn't get the chance to tell him she was pregnant. Julian. Her voice was quiet. Unsure, he turned, and for one beautiful second, his smile faltered. Recognition? No, just confusion. Yes, he said, polite but distant. "It's me," she said. "Olivia Carter." His brow furrowed slightly. He searched her face, the way a person looks at a forgotten street name, like something faintly familiar, but not important enough to hold on to. "Olivia," he repeated. "Cape Cod. 7 years ago. The internship, there was a flicker then, not warmth, just discomfort." "Oh, right. You worked with the marketing interns," he said. "That summer." She nodded slowly. He still didn't remember. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she said, "but I didn't know any other way to reach you. You don't have social media. Your company won't forward messages." He shifted slightly, clearly uneasy. "I'm sorry. I've had a lot going on." "What's this about?" Olivia reached into her purse. Her hands were trembling, but her voice stayed calm. She pulled out a folded photograph. It was Liam, taken last fall, missing a front tooth, and wearing a superhero cape made from a dish towel. She handed it to him. Julian looked down, then up, then back down. She whispered, "His name is Liam." The silence between them was deafening. He blinked. Once, twice. "Is this?" "He's yours." There it was. Truth. Heavy and real and impossible to take back. Julian didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared at the photo, like it might burst into flames if he blinked too fast. Olivia felt a rush of heat flood her cheeks. "I'm not here to ruin your life. I don't want anything from you." He asked, for the first time, he asked why he doesn't have a dad like the other kids. Julian opened his mouth, closed it. She continued, quieter. "I couldn't lie to him anymore." When he finally looked up, his face was pale. "You should have told me." "I tried," she said, "but your number changed. I sent a letter to your company. No one ever replied. And after a while..." She looked down. "I stopped trying. You were gone, and I was busy surviving." He opened his mouth again, then froze as a small voice echoed from behind. "Mom?" Julian turned. Liam stood there, holding a napkin full of marshmallows, one shoe untied. Eyes wide, he looked at Julian, then back at Olivia. "That's him, right?" he asked again. Julian took one step forward, then stopped. "Hi," he said, quietly. Liam tilted his head. "Hi." It wasn't dramatic. No music swelled, no spotlight flickered. But something shifted in Julian's chest. He saw it now. The curve of the boy's smile, the eyes, the defiant set of his jaw, his own jaw. And suddenly, he wasn't a CEO or a guest of honor or the billionaire with the headline-worthy life. He was just a man who had missed every birthday and didn't even know what his son's laugh sounded like. He looked at Olivia. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply stood there, letting him choose. And for the first time in years, Julian Blake had no idea what to say. Chapter 1. The Room. He didn't remember. Julian stood in front of the abstract painting and tried to pretend he wasn't uncomfortable. Children's art wasn't his thing. It was messy, colorful, honest, too honest. "Mr. Blake." A woman called from behind him, her heels tapping across the marble. "The mayor's wife is asking for a photo. Tell her I'll be there in a minute." He needed space, just a minute to breathe. He adjusted his cufflink platinum, engraved, gifted to him by a man who hadn't spoken to him since the IPO. Every inch of this gala was curated, from the white orchids in the hallway to the faux fireplace in the lobby. It was beautiful. It was soulless. So was he. Sometimes, in the next room over, Olivia crouched beside Liam, watching as he dipped a brush into a jar of glitter paint. "Do you think he knows who I am now?" Liam whispered. "No," she said gently. "Not yet, but I look like him." "You said I do." "You do." Olivia smiled, brushing his hair out of his face. But adults don't always see what's in front of them. He considered that, his little brow furrowing. "He's probably really busy." She nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Angela, Olivia's longtime friend and co-worker, appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "I told you not to come," she said softly. "I had to," Olivia replied. "He needs to know. Liam deserves more than bedtime stories about a ghost." Angela handed her a cup. "And what do you deserve?" Olivia didn't answer. Back in the hallway, Julian moved toward the east corridor, the one guests rarely entered. It was quieter there. No cameras, no champagne flutes, just polished wood panels and old paintings. He paused in front of one, a photograph from a charity beach camp in Cape Cod, dated 2016. Interns and kids running along the shoreline. There she was, Olivia, younger, laughing, hair wild with salt wind. He stared at it for a long time. Something about the image unsettled him. "You found the quiet wing," a voice said. Julian turned. Olivia stood at the end of the corridor, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other holding the photo of Liam. Julian straightened. He hadn't expected her to follow him, but she hadn't come to wait for permission. "I'm not here to cause a scene," she said, "or ruin your night. I just wanted you to see something." She handed him the photo again. Same one as earlier. Liam, missing a tooth, holding a plastic dinosaur. "He's not just a photo," she said. "He's real. He likes peanut butter with banana, hates socks, and he wants to be an astronaut." Julian stared at the picture like it had changed. Maybe it had. I don't remember you. I believe you." "Then how?" "We met once, summer of 2016. You were visiting the Cape to meet your father's new board. I was the marketing intern assigned to babysit your schedule. You showed up late, wore aviators indoors, and called me the bossy one." Something flickered in his eyes. "I stayed late one night. You brought coffee. We talked. And then we didn't." He looked away. "I thought I was just a mistake," she said. "But Liam wasn't, and I can't keep lying to him." "I'm not asking you to. You're not asking me anything," Olivia said, "because the truth is, you don't even remember the room where he was made." That stopped him. Cold. She turned to leave, but Liam was standing in the hallway, having slipped away from the art room. He held a paper snowflake in his hand. "Hi again," he said to Julian, lifting the snowflake up. "I made this for you." Julian bent slightly. He took the paper. It was uneven, jagged at the corners, covered in gold crayon and smudged fingerprints. "It's really cool," Julian said. Liam smiled. "I know." Then he added, "My mom says you used to like the stars, too." Julian looked up at Olivia, and for the first time that night, something in him cracked. Later, in the car on the way home, Liam asked, "Do you think he likes me?" Olivia didn't answer right away, but she knew what Julian had looked like when he saw the snowflake. Like a man waking up in a room he didn't know he'd been sleeping in. "I think he's still figuring out what he feels," she said. And what she didn't say, what she couldn't say was, maybe he didn't forget me. Maybe he tried to. Maybe she wasn't forgotten. Maybe she was erased. Chapter 2. The summer. He never called back. She didn't cry when he left. That came later, when the silence lasted weeks, then months, and eventually, years. At first, Olivia told herself there must have been a reason, a family emergency, a missed number, a glitch in the universe. But deep down, she knew he simply hadn't cared enough to remember. Back then, he was warm sand and mischief, sunlight and late-night conversations. That summer, Julian Blake was still human. Not yet. The billionaire headline, not yet carved in marble. He had walked into her world barefoot and arrogant, sipping iced tea from a whiskey glass and calling her trouble with a grin that made her forget her name. And she had just wanted to matter to someone. One night, that was all it took. The night he stayed too late and leaned too close and whispered like he meant it, "You make me forget what I'm supposed to be." They had kissed like they were on borrowed time. He left the next morning without goodbye. No note, no message, just gone. And when she found out she was pregnant 3 weeks later, there was no address, no number, no one at the company willing to connect her with Mr. Blake. So she raised the baby alone. She went to doctor visits alone. She bought secondhand baby clothes and packed cold lunches and worked weekends and never once regretted keeping him. But she regretted believing that someone like Julian would remember someone like her. Angela once asked, "Would you take him back if he ever came around?" And Olivia said no, but she said it too fast. Years passed. She built a life, brick by brick, a quiet one, real. Her apartment was small, but her son laughed loud, and for the most part, that was enough. Until the night Liam drew that picture, 3 stick figures, one missing a name, and asked, "Do I have a dad like the other kids?" That's when everything inside her cracked. Because how do you answer a child who's been waiting for someone that never even knew he existed? And now Julian knew, and still he hadn't called. Not even a message, not a knock at the door. Just the same silence, the same disappearance. Only this time, Olivia wasn't 19 and naive. She was a mother with a child who had inherited the same quiet eyes and the same capacity to be disappointed. Late at night, she sat on the edge of her bed and watched Liam sleep. Sometimes she whispered the story of that summer out loud. Not the pain, just the pieces worth remembering. The freckles across Julian's nose, the way he laughed without filter, how he made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could be more than invisible. And when the memories hurt too much, she told herself one thing. She survived the first time he left. She would survive again. But this time, she wasn't the one who left first. Chapter 3. Something he forgot to feel. Julian Blake stood outside the Children's Museum for almost 20 minutes before he went in. It was a cold morning, sharp air, gray sky. The kind that usually made him retreat into meetings and coffee and silence. But today, he wasn't the CEO with billion-dollar decisions waiting on his desk. He was a man carrying a photo of a child he didn't know how to talk to. He wandered through the quiet exhibits like a ghost, past dioramas and paper rockets, tiny chairs and bins full of glitter glue. Everything smelled like construction paper and innocence. In a corner of the craft room, a small voice broke the stillness. "Mom says you used to love stars." Julian turned. Liam was there, small, serious, arms crossed like he was guarding a secret. His hair stuck up in the back. His sneakers were too big. Julian cleared his throat. "Yeah, I did. I still do," Liam said. "I know all the planets, even the dwarf ones." Julian smiled without meaning to. "That's impressive." Liam looked down, then back up. "Why didn't you come before?" The question hit harder than he expected. "I didn't know you existed," Julian said honestly. "Not until a few nights ago." Liam nodded slowly. "I figured." They sat on a bench shaped like a rocket. Julian watched him draw with a blue marker, circles, swirls, a spaceship with 2 stick figures inside. "That one's me," Liam said, pointing. "And that one's you." Julian blinked. Me. Yeah. If you want, he didn't deserve that drawing. But he folded it carefully and placed it in his coat pocket like it was made of glass. Later, in his car, Julian didn't start the engine. He just sat there, holding the drawing. The kid had every reason to hate him, but he didn't. He just wanted to know where he'd been. That night, Julian called his mother, Olivia Carter. He said without preamble, "Do you remember her?" A pause. Then Eleanor Blake's voice. "Should I?" She interned with the Cape Cod team in 2016. Something happened. "Julian, darling," she sighed. "That was nearly a decade ago. If she's causing trouble now, she's not," he said sharply. "She's not asking for anything, just the truth." Another pause. Then, "She was a summer fling. You went through a phase, remember? Beach houses and poetry books. You came home, and that was that. That was that," he repeated, the way she said it. Like Olivia had been an accident, a phase, an irrelevant girl from a forgettable summer. But she hadn't felt forgettable. He found himself searching his old inbox that night. There it was, a flagged email from a no-reply account. Subject, "Please forward to Julian Blake. Important." It had been sent 2 months after that summer. His assistant at the time had marked it unread. The company's privacy filters had blocked the attached photo. Julian sat there for a long time, staring at the date. He could have known. He should have known. At midnight, he called Olivia. She didn't answer. He left a message. "Olivia, it's me. I found the email. From back then, I didn't know. I didn't." He stopped, restarted. "I met Liam today. He's incredible, and I don't know what to say, except that I'm sorry for not remembering, for not being there, for making you do all of this alone." There was a long pause before he added, softer, "I hope you'll let me try. Not to fix everything. I know I can't, but maybe to start somewhere across the city." Olivia stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, listening. She didn't cry, but her hand trembled as she set the phone down, because it was the first time he didn't disappear. And that scared her more than if he had. Maybe the worst part wasn't that he forgot her. Maybe it was that he remembered just enough to hurt again. Ihr Heicher einfach. Chinors Maiker. The first time she let him in. The doorbell rang just after 5 p.m. Olivia knew it was him before she looked through the peephole. Julian Blake didn't knock like someone used to being invited in. He knocked like a man unsure if he should even be standing there. She opened the door slowly, hand still gripping the edge. He looked tired, not in the way men do after a long day at the office, but in the way people do after realizing they've missed out on something precious. "Hi," he said. "Hi." They stood like that for a moment. No scripts, no perfect lines, just the sharp, awkward breath between two people with too much unsaid. "I brought something," Julian said, lifting a grocery bag. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Food." "No," he said. "Markers and glitter glue." Liam said he was out. Her face cracked just slightly. "That's thoughtful." "I'm trying," he said quietly. She let him in. Liam ran to the door the second he saw who it was. "You came back?" "Yeah." Julian smiled. "I did." "Cool. We're building a planet. Want to help?" Julian looked at Olivia. She nodded. An hour later, the kitchen table was covered in blue paper scraps, glue sticks, and construction chaos. Liam had managed to glue Jupiter to the back of a cereal box. Julian had glitter in his hair. "I think Saturn's crooked," he said. "Saturn's dramatic." Liam replied, "He likes attention." Julian laughed, a real one, not the one he used for press or boardrooms. Olivia leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching them. Something inside her softened, not because he was trying, but because Liam was smiling with a kind of peace she hadn't seen in years. When Liam finally fell asleep, curled up with his paper planet beside him, Julian lingered in the hallway. Olivia brought him a mug of tea. "I forgot you hate coffee," she said. "I forgot a lot of things." She didn't respond. He took the mug with both hands. "I remembered this, though." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin bracelet woven, faded. "You left it on the porch swing that night." "I don't know why I kept it." She stared at it. It had been a cheap thing, a festival trinket. She hadn't thought of it in years. "I kept it," he said again, softer now. "Even when I forgot your face, I couldn't throw this away." She swallowed hard. "Why are you really here, Julian?" He looked up at her. "I don't want to fix the past," he said, "but I want to be in his future. If you'll let me." She blinked. "Just his." He hesitated, then answered the only way he could. "I don't know how to stop thinking about you, Olivia. Even now, even after all this time." Silence filled the room. Not cold, not heavy, just true. She stared into her tea, then finally whispered, "I don't know how to trust you." "I get that. I don't mean just you," she added. "I mean men, people, myself." He nodded. "You don't have to trust me tonight," he said gently. "Just let me show up tomorrow." She looked up, met his eyes, and for the first time in 7 years, she didn't feel like she was holding her breath. "Okay," she said. And just like that, soft, quiet, simple. Something between them began again, not as lovers, not yet, but as two people who finally had something to lose again. He left her once in silence. This time, he chose to stay, word by word, day by day. Chapter 5. Love in the quiet things. Julian didn't take her hand. He didn't lean in. He didn't rush. Instead, he showed up. Every day that week, he arrived at 5, Kempt's p.m. sharp, always with something in his hands. A science kit, Liam's favorite apple juice, a small book of bedtime stories from around the world. Not once did he ask for more than he was offered. He simply sat and listened and stayed. Why are you doing this?" Olivia asked on the 4th day, her voice low as they stood at the sink, drying dishes. "Because I should have done it 7 years ago," he said, not looking up. "I don't need guilt, Julian. I'm not here because I feel guilty." He set the plate down and finally met her eyes. "I'm here because I finally understand what it means to care for someone you don't want to lose." She didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. Liam flourished with him. They built paper bridges and tested how many pennies they could hold before collapsing. They talked about stars and ice cream flavors and the ethics of making your bed if you're just going to mess it up again. And Olivia watched quietly, cautiously, as the boy who once asked, "Do I have a dad like the other kids?" began to walk a little taller. One evening, Julian arrived later than usual. His tie was crooked. His eyes were tired. He looked human. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Hard day?" He nodded, loosening the tie. "Board meeting. Someone tried to undermine a partnership I've been working on for months." "Did they win?" "No, but I had to remind them whose name is on the door." Olivia smirked. "Sounds exhausting." It was. He rubbed the back of his neck. "But I kept thinking about Liam's drawing. The spaceship." She looked up. "The one with the 2 stick figures?" she asked. He nodded. "That one." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside was a printed image of Liam's drawing, enlarged and framed between 2 sheets of glass. At the bottom, Julian had typed, "Mission, home, crew, tutu." Olivia stared at it, her throat tightening. "I had it scanned," he said. "I'm putting it in my office, so I remember what matters when things get loud." She looked at the picture, then at him. "I don't know what to do with you," she whispered. "Don't do anything," he said softly. "Just Let me stay. That night, when she tucked Liam into bed, he asked, "Is Julian my dad for real now?" She brushed hair off his forehead. "He's trying to be. That's real enough for me," Liam mumbled, drifting off. Later, Olivia stepped outside to the small stoop in front of their apartment building. Julian was sitting on the steps, coat draped over his shoulders. "I told Liam the truth," she said. "He didn't turn. How'd he take it? He said it was real enough." Julian exhaled. "He's braver than I am." She sat down beside him. The night was cold, but not bitter. "You're doing good," she said. "With him, I want to do better. With me, with everything." They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Olivia leaned her shoulder into his, just slightly, and Julian closed his eyes, because that small gesture meant more than any kiss, any grand confession. It meant she didn't hate him anymore. He'd spent years building an empire, and now he was learning, piece by piece, how to earn a home. Chapter 6. When the past knocked twice. It had been 24 days since Julian Blake stepped back into Olivia's world. 24 quiet dinners, 24 goodnight stories, 24 chances to walk away. And yet, he stayed. No boardrooms, no cameras, no assistants trailing behind him with coffee and briefings, just Julian. And the echo of a man trying to become someone new. He fixed the kitchen faucet last Saturday. It had been leaking for months. A steady drip, like a heartbeat, in the silence. He didn't call a plumber. He rolled up his sleeves, knelt on Olivia's cracked linoleum floor, and said, "Let me try." She watched from the doorway, arms crossed. "You don't know what you're doing," she said. "I know," he replied, "but I want to learn." That wasn't about the faucet, and she knew it. Some nights, after Liam was asleep, they'd talk on the couch, just voices in the dark. Julian told her about the nights he couldn't sleep in that cold glass penthouse, how he'd stare at the city and feel nothing. He told her about the partners he'd trusted who only saw profit, the father who'd built an empire but never taught him how to be soft. Olivia listened. She didn't try to fix him. She just stayed. That was the first time he told her about the panic attacks, how sometimes the silence was the loudest thing in his life. "You never looked broken," she said quietly. "That's the problem," he replied. "No one ever noticed I was." Then came Sunday. Rain slashed against the windows like it was angry at the world. Liam was building a pillow fort in the living room. Julian was helping. Olivia stood in the kitchen, making grilled cheese. The doorbell rang. She opened it without thinking. Victoria Wells stood there, blonde, impeccable, cold as ever. "I was wondering how long you'd hide him," she said, stepping inside without invitation. Julian froze. Liam looked up. Victoria's eyes flicked to him, then back to Olivia. "So, it's true." Olivia stepped in front of her son, voice even. "Why are you here?" "I'm here because Julian stopped answering my calls. Because his board wants to know why he's playing house in a shoebox instead of preparing for Q4 launches. Because she looked Olivia up and down or a distraction." Julian stood then, slowly. "Leave." Victoria didn't flinch. "You really think this is you, Julian? This domestic fantasy? You used to wear Armani to bed. Now you're playing handyman in a woman's kitchen who once couldn't afford bus fare. Get out," he said again. Voice like ice, but Olivia stepped forward. "You know what's funny?" she said. Voice soft but unshakable. "You came here to remind him who he was, but you forgot the part where he chose not to be that man anymore." Victoria scoffed. "He'll come back. They always do." "No," Julian said. "They don't." Victoria turned on her heel and left, heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. The silence she left behind wasn't heavy. It was clarifying. That night, after Liam had fallen asleep, Julian sat on the fire escape outside Olivia's window, breathing in the wet air. She stepped out quietly, a blanket around her shoulders. "She's not wrong," he said without looking at her. I used to be that man. I know. Olivia replied, I might mess this up. I know that too. He turned to her, then, I want to be better. You're already trying. That's more than most. I don't want to lose you. Either of you, she exhaled, and after a long moment, she leaned her head against his shoulder. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to, because some promises are made louder in silence. The man who once disappeared now feared only one thing being forgotten by the people who made him whole. Chapter 7. The rumor that broke her heart. It started with a photo, grainy, tilted, snapped from across a street. Julian stepping out of a car in Manhattan, flanked by a woman in heels and red lipstick. Victoria. By noon, it was online. By 2 p.m., it was everywhere. Julian Blake reunites with former flame in New York. Engagement rumored. And by 5 p.m., Olivia's phone had 12 messages from coworkers, from people she hadn't spoken to since high school, from her landlord's daughter. Is it true? Achilles thought you were seeing him. Guess some things never change. She didn't call Julian, didn't text, didn't need to, because the worst betrayal doesn't need confirmation. It just feels true. She kept it together until Liam was asleep. Then she locked herself in the bathroom, turned on the shower to drown the sobs, and cried into a towel so her son wouldn't hear. Julian didn't know anything had happened until James, his assistant, stormed into his office. You need to see this. Julian scanned the headline, then the photo, then the timestamp. That's from Monday, he said flatly. She stopped me outside the building. It lasted 2 minutes. James crossed his arms. Olivia doesn't know that. He drove straight to her apartment. She didn't answer the door. Not the first time. Not the second. On the third knock, she opened it halfway, eyes bloodshot but dry. I saw the photo, she said simply. Let me explain. She shook her head. You don't have to. I get it. No, Olivia. You don't. You still live in that world. Julian. A world of headlines and boardroom whispers, and women who wear perfume that costs more than my rent. That photo isn't what broke me. It's realizing I'm the one thing in your life that can be erased with a caption. He stood there, speechless, because she was right, and it hurt more than he expected. I thought we were building something real, she said quietly. We are. Then why didn't you tell me you were meeting her? I didn't know she'd be there. It was a blindside, and you didn't think I deserved to hear that from you first. Silence. That's what I thought, she said, closing the door. That night, Julian didn't sleep. He sat on the cold floor of his penthouse, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word she said. The next morning, he made a call, and for the first time since he took the CEO title at 29, Julian Blake skipped an investor meeting without notice. He went back to her, but this time, he didn't knock. He waited in the park across from Liam's school. When she arrived, holding Liam's hand, she saw him immediately. He stood. Liam waved. Olivia didn't. I know you don't trust me, Julian said when she approached. But I love you, he added. She didn't speak. I didn't say it before because I thought maybe this would crash and burn like everything else. But it hasn't, and I'm terrified because you and Liam are the only real thing I've ever had. Liam blinked up at both of them. Julian knelt beside him. Hey, buddy, can I borrow your mom for one grown-up minute? Liam nodded and skipped toward the monkey bars. Julian stood again. I'm not going back to that world, he said. It's not about the world, Julian. It's about what you do when the past knocks. He reached into his coat and pulled something out, a small envelope. Inside was a printed resignation letter. I stepped down, he said. Her breath caught. You what? I left the company, sold my shares to a junior partner I trust, took my name off the door. She stared at him, stunned. Why? Because I was always waiting for my life to start, but it already had. With you, and if that means starting over, I will. I just need to know. Is there still a chance? She was quiet for a long time. Then, Julian, she whispered, you don't need to burn the world to prove you love me. He smiled. I didn't burn it. I finally walked away from what was burning me. That night, Liam watched them cook together, laugh, share a pot of cheap spaghetti like it was gourmet. And when Julian kissed her soft, slow, careful, Olivia didn't pull away, because this time, he came back on purpose. Sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't about who finds you, but who fights to stay. Chapter 8. The Paper Ring. It started as a joke. Liam had been cutting paper shapes for a school project. A crooked sun, a lopsided dog, a heart with one side bigger than the other. Then he picked up a silver crayon and said, hold out your hand, Julian. Julian obeyed. Liam slipped a twisted strip of paper around his finger. There, he said proudly. Now, you're engaged. Julian laughed, but Olivia didn't, because something about that moment, silly and innocent and far too big, made her heart ache in a way she didn't expect. The next morning, she woke up early, earlier than usual, not because of Liam, not because of work, because for the first time in years, her heart was full and terrified. Julian had been sleeping on the pull-out couch for 2 weeks now. He'd offered to find a place nearby, said he didn't want to intrude, but every night, Liam would ask, can Julian stay? And Olivia would say yes. She wasn't ready to call them a family, but she wasn't ready to lose them either. That afternoon, Julian found an old box in her hall closet while looking for tape. Inside were photos, letters, faded ticket stubs, and one postcard never sent. On the back, written in Olivia's handwriting, it said, you left before I could tell you. I hated you for it, but I still kept your smile. I still remember the way you said my name, like it mattered. Julian sat on the floor for a long time, just holding it. When Olivia walked in, she froze. I didn't mean to read it, he said quietly. It was there. She swallowed. I never sent it. I never thought you'd care. I didn't deserve to. They stood in silence. Then he added, I still say your name, like it matters. That night, he took them out for pizza. Not 5-star, not a rooftop, not press-worthy, just a little hole-in-the-wall place near her old high school. They laughed. They played arcade games with sticky buttons. Liam won a plastic ring from the prize counter and handed it to Julian. For Mom, he said, serious as ever, so she doesn't forget. Julian held it in his palm like it was made of gold. Later, when Liam was asleep, Julian sat with Olivia on the fire escape. The city was breathing below them, soft, distant, unknowingly beautiful. I'm not asking you to marry me, he said. Not yet. She looked over. I'm just asking you to stay. Not because of Liam, not because of guilt, but because I love you and I want to build something real with all our broken parts. She stared at him for a long time, then reached into her pocket and slipped on the plastic ring. Okay, she whispered, I'll stay. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to, because some promises are made not in words, but in staying when it's easier to run. She used to dream of fairy tale endings until she realized the real magic was waking up and choosing each other anyway. Chapter 9. The Night. He almost let go. Julian's hands were shaking, not from fear, not from anger, from shame. He sat alone in his parked car outside the hospital, headlights off, the paper still crumpled in his fist. He'd just left a meeting with his old company's CFO, the one who'd replaced him. They were launching a new product, one based on the original concept Julian had drafted years ago. His code, his blueprint, no credit, no mention, just erasure. He stared at the hospital doors. Inside, Liam was upstairs with Olivia, waiting on test results. It was probably just the flu. But Julian couldn't breathe, because every time something beautiful entered his life, something came to tear it away. He'd walked away from the empire, From power, from legacy, and for what? A second chance that might still vanish. A child who still called him Julian instead of Dad. A woman whose eyes he adored, but who still flinched when she heard the words, forever. The rain started slow, then it poured, and still he sat there gripping the wheel, heart pounding, wondering if he could really be the man she believed he was becoming. Inside, Olivia was pacing. Liam had fallen asleep under warm blankets, cheeks flushed, but Olivia couldn't rest. Julian had left to grab tea an hour ago. No calls, no texts. Something was wrong. She grabbed her coat and ran down the stairs. She found him in the parking lot, forehead resting against the steering wheel. She tapped the window. He didn't move. She opened the door. "Hey." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For being weak." Olivia climbed into the passenger seat beside him. "Tell me." So he did. Everything. The betrayal, the product, the rage, the fear that he was still just a rich man trying to outrun himself. Olivia listened. Then, quietly, she said, "Do you think Liam cares that your name isn't on some patent?" Julian looked down. "You think I fell in love with your resume?" He looked at her now. "I fell in love with the man who fixed my sink without knowing how. The one who lets my son win at chess, but still teaches him strategy. The one who sleeps on a pull-out couch because he's afraid to cross boundaries I never set." Julian blinked back tears. "You think you're weak?" she whispered. "You're the strongest man I know." She reached across the seat and took his hand. "You built something better than an empire," she said. "You built us." And in that rain-soaked car, in the middle of a hospital parking lot, Julian let go of the last piece of his past, not because he lost it, but because, finally, he no longer needed it. He didn't need the world's approval anymore, just one woman's hand and one child's trust. Chapter 10. The answer? She didn't expect. It had been 97 days since Julian knocked on her door, since Liam called him his space captain, since Olivia let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, some men do come back. And this morning, everything felt still, quiet, too quiet, because Julian wasn't there. No coffee brewing, no footsteps pacing in the hallway, no terrible humming of Liam's favorite cartoon theme as he packed lunches, just silence. Olivia didn't panic. She didn't text, didn't call. She told herself, he's a grown man. He's allowed to have a morning, but by noon, that stillness began to crawl beneath her skin. By 2:00 Liam noticed, "Is Julian okay?" She nodded too quickly. Of course. He probably just had something to do. She said it like she believed it, but her hands trembled as she wiped the counter clean for the third time. At 4:00 Ember, there was a knock. She opened the door and froze. Julian stood there, eyes wide, face pale, holding something behind his back. "I need to talk to you," he said. She stepped aside. He didn't walk in. Instead, he dropped to one knee. It wasn't a velvet box. It wasn't even a ring. It was a folded piece of paper. He held it out with both hands. "What is this?" "A question," he said softly. "And my answer." She unfolded the paper. It was a list. A scribbled, messy, heartbreaking list. "Reasons you shouldn't marry me. I left when you needed me most. I let fear speak louder than love. I built a life without asking what yours looked like. I disappeared. I doubted I deserved you. I was wrong." She blinked. At the bottom, another line written in bold, shaky ink. "But if you'll have me, Olivia Grace Martin, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never question my love again." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and Julian, still on his knee, pulled out a ring, not from a store, not from a catalog. It was Liam's paper ring, laminated, Preserved. I tried to replace it, Julian whispered, but nothing else felt right. You're insane, she whispered, laughing through the tears. I know. She knelt too, meeting him at eye level, and she whispered the answer he didn't expect. I already said yes, the moment you came back and never left. Later that evening, Liam found them on the couch curled up, laughing, her head on his chest. Is this the part where we all live happily ever after? He asked. Julian smiled. No, buddy, this is the part where we start living. Final scene. They married under a sky full of stars on a rooftop that Julian used to stand on alone. Now, he stood there with Liam holding one hand and Olivia holding the other, the only empire he ever needed. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with flowers and diamonds. Sometimes it knocks quietly, comes back slowly, and stays forever. They say the heart remembers what the mind forgets. Julian Blake once believed power was everything that success meant silence, distance, control. But love taught him something else. That showing up messy, late, afraid, still matters more than showing off. And Olivia, she spent years building walls, not because she wanted to stay alone, but because no one had ever come back when it counted, until someone did. Now, their story isn't perfect. They argue, they burn toast, sometimes they forget whose turn it is to fold the laundry. But every night, Julian kisses her forehead like it's the most sacred place in the world. And every morning, Olivia watches him laugh with Liam and realizes she didn't just get love back. She got family. She got home. So if you've ever been left behind, if you've ever wondered if you were forgettable, if you've ever told yourself you weren't enough for someone to stay, this story is for you. Because sometimes the people who disappear come back, and this time they stay. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And if you're ready for another story that goes even deeper, I'll see you in the next one. Because love like this, it always finds a way. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Rate it from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story. And stay tuned. More powerful stories are waiting for you right here.